Hey there YouTube, how's it going? Nerdy Narwhal here, and I'm back again today for another 6-scale action figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at an older 6-scale action figure, but one that still probably has a bit of interest. I know that I've been casually playing with the idea of picking it up for quite a while now. Finally got it, and the new Dragon Age game is going to be coming out. Ideally, we get some news about it this year, more news about it. So hype is slowly starting to build on that. I figured it's a good time to go back and take a look at the only, I believe only, licensed 6-scale Dragon Age action figure. And this is going to be Alistair from Dragon Age Inquisition. Let's dive in and have a closer look at the figure. All right, now as soon as you get it out of the box, that head sculpt is pretty meh, right? There's nothing really super special about it. It looks close enough to the in-game model, I guess, but it is so bland. This is probably the blandest head sculpt that they could have picked for this character. There is something behind it, the way that the eyebrows are kind of raised, and there's almost a forced stoicism to the jaw and mouth, that maybe this is Alistair, this is King Alistair, so maybe he's just kind of, I don't know, tensing or putting on a show of regality. That's sort of what this head sculpt looks like to me. But there's none of the fun sort of Mal Reynolds-esque quippiness or anything like that behind what Threezero has given us with this character. And I mean, you know, that's okay. Like I said, this was an older figure. This was an earlier period of time for Threezero with their manufacturing. So we knew what we were getting, and we were getting something a little bit less than Hot Toys quality at the time, but it was also going to be at a much lesser price point. Now, making up for that, I suppose, let me pull the camera back one more time. You are getting an absolutely fun and unique medieval fantasy type of armor with this figure. Now, I had interest in this figure decently before I ever played any of the Dragon Age games. And that was really just because I thought the aesthetic of this armor would look really good on a fantasy display, right next to the Skyrim's Dovahkiin and all of the 6-scale FromSoft characters and whatever else I want to have on display in that fantasy. So it does its job there. Is this armor even remotely functional in real life? Well, it's got some gambeson, so that's okay, but it's definitely not something you would see any sort of medieval king wearing. This is actually pretty poor peasant quality armor if it's just gambeson, no actual plating or anything like that. But again, this is a high fantasy video game, so, you know, whatever. Maybe it's enchanted. What do you expect? But aesthetically, this figure gets the job done. But you should be aware, if you're a huge Dragon Age Inquisition fan, or maybe you just really like this character, that head sculpt is definitely going to leave something to be desired. All right, now let's talk about the accessories that this guy comes with. He's going to come with 6 pairs of hands. I'm not going to bother going into all of them because they're all basic, reused mold Threezero hands from that time. You're going to get a couple of fists, and you're going to get a couple of open, relaxed hands, and you're going to get a couple of gripping hands. I'm only ever going to use these gripping hands, and that's fine. I don't need to use any other hands for it. Those other hands are going to stay in the box until the end of time, or until I sell it. Whatever comes first. Anyways, other than that, he's going to come with his sword and his shield. He does not come with that display base that you see me using with the figure. That comes from my customs and kit bashing bin, just an extra I had lying around. I would suggest using it with this guy just because those Threezero bodies, you know, they can get a little bit floppy over time, and time has passed. So now let's talk about his accessories. First of all, he's going to come with this great big fantasy sword. And that looks awesome in an action figure display. It has tons of intricate sculpting all throughout there. Looking pretty good. It's all plastic, no actual leather. The handle is wrapped, or made to look like it's wrapped. And there we go. It's just a good looking, quintessential, gigantic, thick fantasy greatsword. And it's a lot of fun to give that to the figure. There we go. I definitely wouldn't put it in any sort of medieval display because there's nothing remotely realistic about that sword. But does it look good with a fantasy king? Absolutely. So it's a great little aesthetic to have on your shelves. Now the next thing he comes with is this great big shield. And this is, again, all plastic, a little bit of squish to it, some sculpted fur up there. And that's what the back looks like. This is the handle system you're getting yourself into. On the back, you have a little counter being kept, some bolts. Everything's sculpted pretty nicely on this shield. Now, I did have this posed at the start of the video, right like that, and he was just kind of holding on to it. And that is because, like I said before, these bodies tend to get a little bit looser over time. In fact, I don't know if this figure could have ever held on to the shield, because this thing has some significant heft to it. And I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about. If I put this on that left hand, let's see if I can get that on there on camera, it is just going to weigh that arm down and prevent him from actually doing anything significant with that shield holding pose. See, get that wrapped over the forearm. The straps on the inside of the shield are a nice soft plastic, so that's kind of nice. So now the whole figure wants to tip forward, and he's actually holding it just fine right now. I'm going to pull that over the body. You can see it already starts to just kind of want to sag forward like that. So you can kind of get it like this. There we go. So now the hand and the shield is balancing up against the belt. On the inside there, it's all pulled really close and tight to the figure. And that's probably about the best you're going to be able to do in terms of getting him to pose with the shield, if that's what you're looking for with this figure. Otherwise, this sword, for however big and hefty it is, wanted to pull the whole figure down there, can be posed really easily with the figure. This is probably about the maximum of weight that this guy was meant to carry, just based on the body that he's using. He can hold that out, pose it like that. It doesn't want to tip down. Here we go. Give him a quick little hi-ya kind of a pose. Like he just swung it. Whoosh. And of course his face is bland, not emoting at all. He goes into battle very stoic. Slice. And that looks pretty good, and it works pretty well. Now I'm going to hop in here and take a closer look at this figure's articulation. The nice part about this being an all soft goods outfit is that it's not going to hinder articulation at all. It's going to be pretty much whatever that Threezero body would be capable of. So first of all, let's talk about that head. It's on a single piece head and neck joint. You're going to be able to look up that far, down that far. You're going to get a little bit of tilt, not much. It's going to bump into the shoulders. Left, right, that's all well and dandy. Now the arms are going to T-pose out to about here. There we go. Let's fold those back down. Oop, that one got stuck. It's going to go out pretty gosh darn far. And there's going to be a nice double bend at the elbow, giving you all the range of motion there that you could possibly want. Now I'm going to split real quick and talk about one little thing. Those are pleather straps, which I really do not like on 6-scale figures. Over time, those things do have a tendency to wear out and get weak, even in the climate that I live in, which is really partial towards things like pleather straps on 6-scale figures. Down here, they used a nice rubbery bit, and I wish they could have extended that all throughout the figure. Now, I've used material like this before when those have broken, and I do highly recommend it. Just get those nice little stretchy straps there, and it'll fit right back on the figure, no problem. A little dab of glue on the inside of the fabric, and you are set. Anyways, back to articulation. We are now on the torso, and this guy is going to crunch forward plenty. Some of that's coming from the hips, not just the diaphragm. And he's going to look back pretty good as well. You're not going to get a whole lot of crunch. Now that is a pretty padded torso. It doesn't hinder things, but just the body they use didn't have the greatest of diaphragm crunches. Now let's move on into the legs. You're going to kick up about that far. You're going to get a nice double jointed bend to the knees, giving you about 45 degrees. The figure can split out pretty decently before you risk popping that seam. And it's a 2-piece boot cut. Well, I guess I'm just going to pop that foot right off. There we go, wedge it back on there. But you're going to get, oh geez, it just wants to pop off. Let's try this foot. You're going to get a decent amount of left, right, up, down, slightly less, as it rubs into that top cut part of the rubber there. But you're going to get enough. And one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the weathering for Threezero. That's one thing that they've always done really well. And you'll see it goes throughout the figure, starting down here, a little bit heavier on the feet, and moving up even into those cloth goods. You get an ashy sort of weathering all over everything. Threezero's always been champion with their weathering. Maybe it's snow, I'm not entirely sure. But either way, it looks phenomenal all throughout the figure. So I appreciate that. Anyways, that is going to wrap up this review of the Threezero Dragon Age Inquisition Alistair 6-scale action figure. Now, ultimately, it's just a pretty cool 6-scale fantasy action figure with a great big fantasy sword and aesthetic that looks good on the shelf, regardless of whether or not you love the character or you love the game. It's a great game. You should play it, and a lot of people are really, really into the character of Alistair. However, if you're just looking for an aesthetic piece to get on your shelf, I'd say go for it. I've seen prices for this guy all over the place. I think the original SRP was something like $150. Gone are those days. There's nobody making 6-scale, quality 6-scale action figures in that price range anymore. But I've seen this guy sell in the last few years for as low as $100 on Mercari to as high as $250. I don't think it's really worth $250, but if you can find this guy on the $100, on that lower end of the spectrum, absolutely, it's a no-brainer pickup. That outfit is really cool and unique. It's also quality made. It's definitely going to stand out on your shelves. And the only thing really holding it back is a pretty mediocre, bland head sculpt, but whatever, I can get over that for the accessories. And the body. The body does its job, but perhaps with a body swap, this piece would be kicked up just a notch as long as it were able to hold that shield. That's primarily what I'm thinking of when I consider the body swap. Anyways, if there's anything that I've missed in this review, please feel free to get at me in the comments. I'll respond, or I'll make a short or something like that, because I want to help you make an informed purchasing decision. And that is going to wrap it up. Stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on collecting. Bye-bye, YouTube.